What's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Liquid Life. My name is Preston Douglas Boyer, and I'm joined with my amazing guest today, Sandy Kupfer, aka I Love Life. Welcome to Liquid Life, my brother.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for joining us today, and I'm super excited to talk about Sandy and their relationship to water and art and spirituality, our relationship to God and creativity. But let's start out with just the basic question. What is your relationship to water?
I think water has to be my favorite drink that exists, and I actually full-heartedly mean that. Yeah.
And why so?
My mom wouldn't let us drink soda when I was really little, and juice, just never hit. But water is extremely refreshing, and I just developed a habit of drinking copious amounts of water every day.
Okay.
And I feel good after, I feel cleansed, and I feel ready for the day.
And so what kind of water are you drinking in your day-to-day life?
Well, I like to switch it up. We have a Brita at home, which is decent for filtering water. I did live off grid for a bit recently in a school bus, a schoolie home, like one of those things in van life. Shout out those people. And it was cool. And that was a complex thing with water because these 5-gallon tanks would exist that I'd pour into my Brita, but they didn't feel too filtered. And I like the clean stuff, so generally I'll get bottles like this. I don't know much about the brands, but I know they taste quality and clean. Yeah.
So that's kind of what this shows. A big part of it is educating people about water, because for me, for many years, I didn't know what was in my water, what the difference is, and this idea of taste and purity, these things that you've kind of mentioned being these values that you have towards water. But then when people are asked, what does that really mean to you? At least in my experience, I didn't know why or what it really meant.
I'm super excited,
Good.
actually.
I'm super glad to talk about it.
A crash course on water quality. Sick.
So right here I have my handy dandy Super 80s TDS meter. And this measures total dissolved solids. So we know that water isn't just water, right?
Yeah.
It's not just H2O. There's all these other minerals that are in naturally occurring water, but there's also bad stuff in the water too, right? And so the waters we buy that are available in the store have varying levels of all these things, right? These are all naturally occurring waters. These 3 pieces in the middle between the bottles are actually these kind of sculptural tests I've been making in my studio for tests for the water that I'm coming up with in the brand that this show is kind of about. But these 4 waters are all naturally occurring waters around the world. This one's from Ecuador, this one's from Peru, this one's from Germany, and this one's from Spain. And so these are all naturally occurring waters, whereas a lot of the water that's available in stores is purified tap water, municipally sourced tap water. And this term purified isn't necessarily a good thing. So our body needs these minerals and these quote unquote electrolytes that's kind of marketed to us to actually absorb water and to use the water in our body. There are use cases for distilled water, which has 0 TDS, which means it doesn't have anything in it. Usually purified tap water, but it's very purified. But if we drink a lot of that, then it actually flushes out our system, like you kind of just mentioned, feeling clean when you drink copious amounts of water. The problem with that is it's a detox, it's a flush. The water we're drinking on a regular basis, we want it to be hydrating for us to be able to function off it. So there's a myth that you should be drinking a gallon of water a day. Sure, there's a use case for that, but really, if you're drinking good quality living water that has great minerals and nutrients in it, literally I could 1 bottle of this a day for me because it's so high in all these minerals.
So this is the source, most fruitful water.
Yes.
Because it probably comes directly from a space where water originates.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's different naturally occurring mineral sources, artesian well sources, spring sources, and these kind of run the gamut of that. And so maybe we get into our first water on here, which is Splendor. This is a volcanic artesian water, so it's actually lower in TDS, meaning lower to total dissolved solids. But this one's interesting because it has naturally occurring gold and colloidal silver in it. This is a product of Ecuador. I like the blue bottle, it has a good design to it, and we had this on our first show, and I kind of want to show you. Whoa! Haven't opened it since the show. is stored at room temperature because you always want to test the water at room temperature to get your accurate TDS levels. But I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on this water. It's sparkling, so there's carbonation added to it.
Yeah.
There's naturally occurring waters that are effervescent, like this next one, Sokosani, that is kind of naturally sparkling and bubbly.
Interesting.
But go ahead and try it and let me know what you think.
I like the first thing because the experience of the sensation of fizz is a lot for me. I like how this is not necessarily overbearing. It has this like tranquil feel to it. It's not like intense when it fizzes in your mouth. And then it's very smooth and clean. You can taste that, and that is like sufficient to be like the reason I probably wouldn't drink a ton of this, because I actually don't need to get the accurate amount of minerals, vitamins, etc.
And so this is clocking in at a parts per million, which is a total dissolved solid TDS, about 37, 39, which is pretty clean, pretty pure.
Yeah.
A lot of RO waters that are available on the market actually end up being similar to that. So reverse osmosis is a process these big water companies use to purify municipal tap water sources. Can you taste the trace amounts of gold and silver in the water? That's my real question.
I can't taste them, but I can feel them.
It does have a kind of metallic taste to me.
Yeah.
This is actually the second episode in a row
Try.
I've eaten sugar right before tasting water, and sugar is probably the worst thing to eat before you try and use your palate.
No, it has that base taste to it. I know what you mean.
But there is definitely kind of a metallic taste to it, right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
The other thing I find is the taste of water in dark blue cobalt bottles actually is different than green bottles or clear bottles.
Are we speaking on glass bottles specifically?
What do you think about glass bottles?
I think I'm just thinking about the concept of like a coloration of a bottle over time affecting how the water would taste because it's see-through, and then like certain interactions may occur with the glass and the water.
Yep.
Is that a possibility?
Yep, 100%.
Okay.
And different relationships really with the sun as well. So there's some people that swear by storing your moon water in a blue bottle. This is a cobalt bottle, and I've been in communication in attempts to actually produce bottles in conversation with all these distributors and manufacturers of glass around the world. And it's pretty easy to find someone who'll do a cobalt blue bottle.
Yeah.
But it's pretty challenging to find someone to do, let's say, a blue like this.
Yeah.
That's naturally occurring or fritted rather than being sprayed.
So are we speaking on the hues varying, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that concept too. It's just beautiful. Those are some of my favorite colors in the world within this one specifically, but I think they're all similar colors. If you did that, that would be sick.
Well, we're actually actively working on that, and Sandy's an amazing artist, and that's actually not how we initially met. But as I pour this next water, can you kind of delve into how we met, 8 years ago, 9 years ago?
A long time ago.
In Houston.
Okay, so the story is this. No, it's intense, but it's cool. So I was 18 and I was in treatment for recovering from substance abuse and mental health treatment as well in a dual diagnosis facility. And it was just a rough patch in my life that I've since overcome. And I heard this blonde-haired, Kurt Cobain-looking, brilliant man come in and lead a magnificent share on his life. And the motto is like, look for people who have what you want. So I'm pretty sure I reached out for you for your phone number. And I remember distinctly, this is a core memory I'll never forget, because this was one of my first engagements as a young adult, or really a young person, like engaging with art as a practice professionally. You proceeded to have me to your studio, and you were heavy into fashion design at the time. And it was like very immensely true that this fashion design was dwelling into painting, and these paintings were dwelling into fashion design. There was this complex like alchemical transmutation of something similar but different occurring. And that excited me because I oftentimes, well, I was just stoked. I'm not going to go farther. Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Very vividly. And I'd led a number of meetings and told my story a number of times at that treatment facility in particular, because one of my best friends in early recovery went there, and I would just go to those meetings. And the recovery rate of people, especially young people at those facilities, is just pretty low. And for you to still be here and doing the deal, and for us to still be in conversation is a beautiful thing, right?
I call that a blessing of life itself. I mean, to have a mentor, which I would call you a mentor to me, artistically in recovery and just as an adult who navigates life gracefully and justfully, like with a vision that's unique, that's something I'm blessed to have.
Thank you.
And I think that is something that is sustained through effort, and something that is sustained and then drawn back and sustained as things are constantly transforming and changing. Yeah.
I need to have you on every podcast to just stroke my ego, Sandy.
What, did I?
No, it's a good thing. I'll take it.
No, like, I mean, we're close. Like, we're
Yes.
closer than we have been in years.
Yes.
We're in a close period.
Yes.
Like,
LA, baby.
Yeah, you moved to LA. I mean, Preston was in New York and Houston, and I've just been in LA for like fucking forever. So.
I know. I remember you telling me you're moving to LA to go to school, and I'm like, okay. And no face tattoos. You weren't a famous tattoo artist when you moved. It's like I saw you in the grind and in the struggle and just trying to work through it in not only your career but your art practice. And then I went to your MFA show recently, and it was really an incredible, almost spiritual experience to see someone who, you've been asking me my feedback on your work for a long time, and it's always been like, I don't know. And then it all kind of culminated into that moment, right? And for me, I had mentors in my life who kind of gave me that run around. They're like, I don't know about it. It's like, I see this in it. There's something here. Keep moving in this direction. But then finally to have that like approval per se, or that recognition from someone that you've looked up to for a long time. In my life, that was Mark Flood. It was like, okay, like, it feels so good, right?
Yeah. Should I speak on that? I mean,
let's go for it.
I mean, I would send Preston these manically painted paintings or these sloppy paintings that took many renditions and were muddy and not in a graceful way. And it took a long time to cultivate a stylistic approach. And like, really how I think I approached it was like, harnessing my energy by like kind of like keeping my studio as a sanctuary, and like having Preston and like a mentor such as a few other ones I would have at the time or do have to my studio. And like, you weren't there physically a lot or probably ever, but you did give me feedback, and y'all like nudged me as if I was on a riverboat guiding down a river I did not know, like in the right direction. And it was like, oh, so this and that. And then like over time I formulated this like vocabulary painting wise, like with my strokes, coloration, texture, etc. And like that was one of the best things to have you come to my show, first off, and second off, approach me with such large scale words of kindness and approval. I could get approval from a lot of people, but from like a mentor, it's just a different experience. It's something I will hold dear to my heart. Yeah.
And what do you think the value is for younger artists having a mentor in their life for their artistic practice? And when do you take advice and move towards that advice? And when do you really stick to your guns?
Yeah. So that's twofold, so I'll double it. The first aspect would be to have a mentor is something you have to be selective about. It's a trait and a role in your life that is sacred and special and can either lift you up, uplift you, or tear you down, bring you down to the ground. And it's like the kind of thing you want to have this ballet dance with two people, like going up and down, and it will bring you down and up. But at the end of the day, you want them to teach you how to be a really good ballet dancer. And second off, I think to follow a mentor is something that takes humility, which as a young adult, I'll speak for myself, I did not know much about humility, or a younger person even before adulthood. And I think to listen to people is good, and to know what you're doing and know that they're maybe not getting the vision is even more important. with certain people. But yeah, you have to understand, like, this is your thing you're cultivating, and some people have access to the source you're tapping into more than you, and they want to help you get closer to it. So sometimes listening to people is the best
Yeah.
bet, but it's really just, I'm speaking on this intuition feeling. That's what you got to be guided by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jacqueline, my wife, and I subscribe to this healing kind of collective called the Power Path, and they have a word for every month and kind of astrologically related to spirit, etc. And this month's word is discernment.
Yeah.
And you speaking on this idea of like when to listen to someone who you respect versus when to kind of trust your intuition is all about discernment.
Yeah.
And painting in particular is all about art history and painting history and those who've come before us.
Yeah.
And it's quite a direct relationship that is harder to discern in fashion per se. You know, you're wearing a Vivienne Westwood dress right now. Vivienne Westwood has all of these people who've come after them and what they kind of built in punk rock in London.
Yeah.
And you embody that in LA in 2025, right?
Yeah.
But to have that direct mentorship is something that I personally found so valuable and so sacred and such a beautiful experience in the painting world in particular, because when I was in fashion, it was like I would try and go in Vivienne Westwood and talk to people who work there. You know, Vivienne's not taking any meetings with Preston, you know, but there's artists who I connected with on Instagram and in person, and they would go have lunch with me. I could go to their studio. I could have these one-on-one conversations.
Yeah.
And that was such an eye-opening experience that could also be, a challenging one, like meeting your heroes, you know, and it kind of ruining their work. It can kind of backfire, and I've had that happen a couple of times as well.
Yeah. I think the concept of community is really important in any artistic practice, because I think about painting kind of like as if I was a spider and I'm stringing a web, and I have older spiders showing me how to properly string a web. The web would not just be a work, it would be a body, just like my whole body of work. And like per spindle is like this painting that will lead to the next spindle that hopefully will eventually like engage with contextually like an artist and cling on to theirs, and then cling on to theirs, and cling on to theirs, and cling on to theirs, and then you develop this like this motif about your painting. But I think that's almost impossible to do without mentors, and that's why like the master's program I went to like really gave me access to them, and like also having you in my life and a few other mentors in my life creatively, it allowed me to like really find this flow that like does find a footing, because that's the fundament of it, literally, in like a context, in an art history context, and also break free of it. And that's like, yeah, that's all I'll say. Yeah,
I think that's a great transition into our next water.
I'm so down. I'm thirsty.
I'm thirsty too.
Yeah.
So this next water is called Sokasani.
Sokasani.
Go ahead and take a sip. Cheers.
Oh, I have it already. I didn't know this. I need to hear about Sokasani.
So Sokasani is a natural living water from Peru.
This is good.
Yeah.
This is the good stuff. This is my stuff.
So if you notice in the cup, there's actually some bubbles. So this is an effervescent water, meaning that it's naturally mildly carbonated. And this is a very high mineral water. So with a mineral water, the water is actually over 250 milligrams TDS. Now this water is marketed as 1,800 milligrams per liter, which is high. This last one was 39.
Let's check the facts on that thing.
Let's check it. So with living waters, I have more grace because the natural source will vary, more and more. From, let's say, a purified tap water, it's a lot easier to control that TDS with a product, which poses some challenges with the water, because one day it can be, producing something that's good to be bottled, and one day there might be too much turbidity, which is, a murkiness in the water, right? We're clocking at 1,060 parts per million, so we're about 800 off. But in the grand scheme of things, from other waters I've tested, it's actually not too bad. At the same time, this is a high TDS level water still,
Wow.
even though it's marketed as 1,800. The thing I really love about this water in particular is it's super high in bicarbonate. So you kind of get that basic taste to it, right?
I was just gonna ask, like, yeah, exactly. What is the taste specifically?
Yeah, like baking soda.
Yeah.
And so alkaline water, I'm sure you've seen that everywhere.
Oh,
Okay, what is that reaction?
I think it's cool and it tastes good, but I think they exploit how good it is for you, because I don't know how good it is for you really, to like market it to make it more expensive, and like it's just a capitalistic tactic.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is definitely that. And alkaline water really is a marketing myth to sell you purified tap water.
Oh, it's actually purified tap water?
Yes, alkaline
I
is.
knew that. I didn't, like, low key.
Yep. And there's some, legitimacy to alkalinity in the body. You think about Ayurvedic diets and what you put in your body, if it's hot, cold, warm, etc. And there's some legitimacy to pH and alkalinity, but your stomach is so acidic that drinking a 9.5 pH water versus a 7.7 pH water, the grand scheme of things, ain't gonna do very much. And it's a marketing myth to sell you expensive purified tap water.
At a cheaper production rate.
And they can make a consistent product because they can take different municipalities' tap water, reverse osmosis it, so take everything out of it. And then they can remineralize it with baking soda. Literally, if you want to raise the pH of your water and not buy alkaline water, you can put a little baking soda into your water.
Wow.
And there's all these super fancy, ionization systems you can get in your home that raise the alkalinity through ionization processes, but a little touch of baking soda and you're good to go. So it's kind of like if my stomach's upset or something like this, I always keep this in the house. It's like a natural Tums.
I see. Yeah, it would have that effect.
And super hydrating. This one is pretty high in silica as well.
I like that one a lot. This is my favorite so far, but we do have two more.
We do have two more.
Yeah.
And I've kind of pared it down. Last time we had 7 with one of my mentors in the water business, Jason from Miracle Seltzer.
He's sick.
He's super sick.
Yeah, he's
Shout out to
cool.
Jason. Thank you
You're
for being
cool.
podcast number 1. But we had 7 waters, and it was a lot of waters to be getting into, and less room for conversation. So while I pour up my favorite commercially viable water, which is Gerolsteiner, which is from Germany, this is the most popular water in Germany, mineral water, and they have 4 different levels of sparkling, etc. in Germany, but this one in the US you can get at Trader Joe's and some other retailers. This is the high sparkling level, and it has a TDS marketed at 2,500 milligrams per liter. But I'm going to pour this up for us.
Look at the bottle?
Yeah, for sure. I've actually not tested this Gerolsteiner before, and I've been drinking it for a long time. And Sandy, if you notice over here, these living waters, they'll actually show you the mineral content in the water. Now, this isn't accounting for all of the minerals. To actually get those reports, you can either contact them, and sometimes they'll share it with you, sometimes they won't. Because with these living waters, there's trace amounts of uranium, arsenic, these things that you generally don't want any of. But there's some interesting research in arsenic in particular, I just read, that very, very trace amounts of arsenic can actually kill cancer cells. And I was doing a water review of this Eternal Spring water, and they got a really bad review on this major water analysis app for arsenic levels. And I did the math, and number one, their EPA limits that they were kind of basing off the limit were wrong. And also doing some research with my co-founder of the company about arsenic killing cancer cells, it's pretty interesting. So
Wow.
Everything that's marketed to us as good or bad, you kind of want to look beyond that and go a little deeper, right? Just like alkalinity being good for you, well, okay, I get it, arsenic poison. But killing some cancer cells potentially, I think that's some interesting rabbit hole to go down, and for each person to make that decision for themselves. So Gerolsteiner, cheers. Shall we cheers this?
I'm down.
Okay, we're gonna cheers this before we're gonna test the TDS.
Let's
But go for
cheers.
it.
I'm good. I can try it.
Yeah, go
All
for
right.
it.
Oh, this is insane.
That's what we want. We want insane.
I'm down with it. If you see the bubbles conglomerating on this tester thing, it's really there.
Oh no.
They're really present.
Oh no, Gerolsteiner, you're failing me.
And you've been drinking this one, right?
Yes.
Nah.
I love it. I love it so much. I love the intense bubble. I like really crazy water. I like the intensity of it. I like the mineral composition of this water in particular.
Oh, I like this too, but I'm just sad they're failing you.
They are honestly really failing me.
Tell them how much they're failing you.
Gerolsteiner, I think I need to do it in a German accent. Gerolsteiner. Why is your TDS only around 850? It is marketed as 2500.
Oh my
I am so
god.
sad. That is like 1/3 of your. I feel like I'm mocking Martin Rees, who's like the most famous water sommelier, who's German. But Gerolstein, I mean, we're at 715 now. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and go 850 and lock you in here. But then again, these living waters vary bottle to bottle. So, over the course of this show that we're doing, we'll have repeating guest waters making appearances as we're working on our own water. But I'm curious to see how this actually varies from bottle to bottle. But like 1/3 of the marketed minerality is pretty disappointing. At the same time, now I know why I can go through a bottle of this every day, because the minerality is significantly less than what it's marketed as. And this last water we're gonna try is like probably the craziest commercially viable mineral water on the market. But before we get into that, I know you got all excited.
I like to learn. Learning is really very fulfilling.
Me too.
And learning about water, my favorite drink, chef's kiss.
Well, I could pull out even more. I have like 12 different waters in my closet right now.
This is sick. Yeah, I didn't know what I was getting into. I like this though.
I am too, and I think most people don't really understand what is in their water, why their body is reacting a certain way to particular waters. Like, you knew in your intuition, going back to that discernment, that alkalinity was like this thing that felt like a myth, but maybe, and upon further research, and I'm sure you'll go back and do a couple little deep dives on social media, and it'll come up on Instagram ads now, right? And knowing like what that means and what it does to your body in particular, my body, and how we kind of consumed these particular brands.
Yeah, that's crazy. But what were we going to talk about?
God.
Oh.
So, we're both active in 12-step recovery, and the spiritual life is, and these spiritual principles are kind of everything. And I'm curious to kind of learn a bit more how you were raised, and when you came into recovery, your initial relationship with the spiritual component of that program, and expounding upon what spirituality and your relationship with God, Creator, whatever you call it, in your life today and what that looks like.
Yeah, so I was raised in a Jewish household. Not like super standard, but somewhat unconventional, and it was loosey in a bit, but we were like attending Hebrew school often, 3 times a week, and like I had a bar mitzvah, and I think I understood this feeling before I could understood the thought, if that makes sense. And I felt connections to deep-seated, like higher beings, like God, the source. And I felt connections to like warmness and light and good. And I didn't have the vocabulary for it as a child.
Yep.
But the thing is, like, I also felt connections to darkness and like abyss and destruction and evil and chaos. And like, so I think for me, what happened when I was like 17, I really got into, that was like my discovery era, like 15 to 19, and it constantly is from there on out, of art, music, and cultural creativity. But like, I think David Lynch did transcendental meditation, and I took a course from one of the centers at the time to learn TM, and doing TM changed my life, because not only did I generally understand things they said in the course, but then I also learned how to do the meditation and connect to source, and like connect to this like deep thing that's deeper than anything we can even comprehend, but we can experience. And then in recovery, I found that same thing, and it took me a while to find it, to be honest. Like, to really find source through recovery took me a lot of willingness to get to the point to really show up for my side of the street and have that higher power match me at the end with the light and say, come this way. So to find that source through recovery, find God, whatever you want to call it, like, that was probably and is probably one of the things I'll value most. Like, that shit changed my life. Like, yeah, nothing else will compare to that connection to God.
When I first got sober, I did a TM course in Houston. Did you do yours in Houston?
Yeah.
Really? Where did you do it?
At the, I don't remember.
Youth
I was
Center?
young. Yeah, I think so.
something like that.
Do you remember like the people who did it? Because it was like a couple. For
I
me.
don't.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
remember. And I don't remember my mantra or your word.
You don't?
I don't. I paid a lot of money for that course and I don't remember.
Well, you know, if you go back to any TM center and have valid proof that you did TM, they will reschool you in TM, apparently.
Oh.
That's what they told me when I was younger.
Well, then it's worth the investment.
Yeah.
20 minutes twice a day. I mean, I remember being early in recovery and trying to do that, and I'm just like, man, it felt like a lot.
Yeah.
But meditation has been a really important part of my spiritual practice that I definitely don't do as much as I should. But in LA, in the 12-step meetings I go to at least, they really are serious about meditation. Mm-hmm. And part of me is like, oh, you want to avoid like talking and dealing with like the real stuff. So we just meditate a lot here in Los Angeles. So we can avoid talking about God. So we just meditate. But at the same time, it's like, they say that praying is talking to God, while meditating is listening.
Yeah.
And I still believe that is very true in many ways. And there are, of course, different forms of meditation, but there's something really special about real meditation.
Meditation, yeah, that's the best thing. Can I say something?
Go for it.
I think when I'm painting, I love the process of really being in flow because it is so meditative that I'm not even present. It's just this flow is happening. You know what I mean? And it gets you so cut to the bone, like where you want to be with like connectivity and experiential possibilities, that it's like, if you know what I'm talking about, like that's why I make art all the time, is partially because this experience is so sacred. Yeah.
And so what is your kind of relationship to creator, God, and the process of creation?
You have to, I was talking to one of my like OG, like this dude's like, I love him so much. He's like one of my other mentors. And he was like, you have to bring God into the studio. And yeah, when you get willful about creativity, it's never good. And it's like good to have an extremely hardcore work ethic and like, in my opinion, and go really hard about it. But like, you have to bring like God into your creative process, or whatever God is to you, you know what I mean? Because like, you need something guiding your brush other than your finite self to like light the way, whether it be a brush or a tattoo machine or a pencil or, in your case, many other materials. Yeah.
And you had an exhibition talking about that light component a couple years ago, right?
The light is worth the wait.
And so what does the light is worth the wait mean to you today, years after, 2 years ago or so, 18 months?
Yeah.
After that exhibition?
Wow, it's only been 18 months, but that felt so long. I think light beings are real, like fifth dimensional light beings, And I think like the source, the light, is like inspiring, like there's this angel vibe about it. And experiencing the light is like a blissful, it's not woo-woo, it's just this blissful calmness. And to gauge that and tap into that, I had glimpses of it when I was younger, but at that time I was still kind of grappling with abyss myself. And so it was like scary because I had this affirmation that the light is worth the wait, but like that was my affirmation and I named the show after that. Yeah.
And was it worth the wait?
I would say the light is not only worth the wait, but it's part of the light is the wait. Like you have to go through darkness to comprehend and experience light, or you're just ungrateful in the present and asleep. Yeah.
The light is part of the wait.
Yeah.
That's good.
Thanks.
And your new show that I went to 2 months ago or so, what was the title of that?
Soft, like wet cement. Yeah, I love that title.
And what does that title kind of mean to you now that the show's over versus when the show was in process? And it was your MFA thesis exhibition. For those that don't know, MFA, Master's in Fine Arts, you had a painting degree, right?
Yeah.
And that is a 2-year program usually that you participated in at Otis College of Art and Design.
Yeah, so I pursued my master's degree at Otis College of Art and Design, and I did get an MFA, and for my culinary show, it was a show called Soft, like wet cement. I thought of the title a year before I did this show. I write a lot of just words that people call poetry, but it's really just how I think. And I guess it could be poetry, but I wrote that, and soft like wet cement is non-dual, the statement, but it's very dual, and non-duality, part of it is like existing in the dual while having outside the parameters a greater existence. And like that is like part of an active resistance to like this, well, yeah. Anyways, like soft like wet cement for me is about being moldable, but about being firm, about being hard, about being soft. Because like these paintings are literally walking the tightrope of like angelic versus demonic, like figurative versus abstract, like muddy colors versus crisp, like neon like ones. Like, so the concept of like all of that is very much neither here nor there, but both. And soft like wet cement, there will be a finite point where soft cement is hard, but it takes time. And I think that's how I think about life.
Me too, and that's the human experience, is this duality. Like the earthly dimension, I feel like, is this dimension of duality, of right versus wrong. I think there's no coincidence that the word God is one O from good.
Yeah.
I think that there's no coincidence that evil is one letter away from devil.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And how do we exist in this space of spirituality, of connection to God, and to connection to good, and remain kind of in this non-judgmental point? And it's really, in a way, an impossible task for humans to do that.
Yeah.
But then you look at people like Buddha and all these other religions where judgment is seen as the sin. And approaching that kind of through the lens of art and the conversation of art, where it's not so, let's say, loaded as religion, right, is a beautiful way to kind of tackle these theoretical human concepts in a beautiful way as well, with the actual physical objects themselves.
Yeah. I like everything you just said.
Me too. I just came up with it, but it's something I've been thinking about for a little while.
Cool.
Okay, last water, shall we?
Yeah.
Vichy Catalan from Spain. Feel this bottle. Isn't that great?
It's a great design. I want to show Ava this.
It's a special water.
Yeah.
If I had another bottle, I'd give it to you.
Thank you.
This was $10 at Erewhon.
Oh, Erewhon.
This bottle retails for $3.99 everywhere else in the world. $9.99 at Erewhon.
Oy vey.
We'll send some home with you for Ava and like a little flask or something.
Yeah. No, I'm good.
This is a super high TDS water. It's marketed as 3,000 milligrams per liter.
I'm excited for this one, Preston.
This one is the highest TDS water that you can buy commercially in most places, that I'm aware of at least.
This is actually insane, because I didn't know water could taste like this, and I drink water more than most people. So where can I access this water? Where can I purchase it?
Well, if you want to spend a lot of money for it, you can go to Erewhon. They are one of the stockists of this water in Los Angeles. I called one Erewhon and it was $3.99. The Erewhon I went to was $9.99. So I don't know if they had a pricing issue or maybe it was a different size of the bottle, but yeah. Put that over there by the... All right, and we're going to test this TDS again. This is the same bottle as the first one, so it should be the same.
Can you, like, as someone who has knowledge on this, you're, like, in the know of water, can you, like, break down to me what I'm tasting and the experience of it, like, texturally being in my mouth, etc.?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are water sommeliers, just like a wine sommelier.
That's so cool.
It is so cool.
Yeah.
Am I as eloquent or elegant, I guess, or articulate about these physical reactions that our body's having in these different tastes yet? No. So I've really been down the water rabbit hole for the past year in particular. And when I first got sober, I fell in love with Topo Chico, LaCroix. But as I'm tasting more and more waters from around the world at different TDS levels, et cetera, like I'm definitely adjusting to my palate and being like, oh, that's the bicarbonate taste. That's the sodium. That's the calcium and magnesium, the water hardness, these components.
You can literally identify that off taste.
I'm getting better.
Yeah.
It's definitely like anything, like practice and learning. And the more I know about the waters, the more I'm able to recognize. But with Vici Catalan in particular, without me saying something, what is the first note you really get?
Can I have more? All right.
Go for it. Because there's a really strong initial taste that I get.
I think is it the bakings? What is it? Like I can't label it. I don't know what it is, but I know I tasted it.
So there's definitely like a really intense basic level to it, and there's definitely a lot of bicarbonate in here. But the thing that really reads for me, Vici, is the salt.
Yeah, it's the salt. That's so weird because I couldn't even fathom that you would drink salt water, but salt water kind of tastes good.
Salt water tastes good. So we're clocking in at about half of the marketed TDS, around 1,500 parts per million. But this water is from Spain, and I swear I said this last time. I feel like some sort of coastal water, got into whatever mineral source that this is from, and there's some semblance of ocean water in this water.
It's honestly like I used to surf a lot, and whenever you're like paddling out to surf, sometimes the waves are just beating down on you and you can't get out for like 30, 45 minutes, even an hour sometimes, like if it's big, and the waves that is, and like that little brisk water in your nose to your mouth, like it doesn't always taste bad, the ocean water, when you're surfing. So like I'm not opposed to drinking like water that tastes like ocean water but isn't ocean water. Like I'm kind of with it.
Well, the good thing about sodium too is it helps your body actually hold on to the water. So when before a flight, I'll take a pinch of Himalayan pink sea salt and rip it so I don't pee all of the time while I'm on the flight, so I can stay hydrated but not have to use the bathroom every 5 minutes.
That is a necessity.
Yeah. It's definitely a necessity in places like New York when it's like you can't go to the public bathroom anywhere. I mean, I guess you can just piss on the street in LA, New York, and you're fine.
Jesus.
But I don't want to be doing that.
Yeah. Nah.
So there's a super high level of sodium in this water.
Yeah.
And that's, for me, the first taste that kind of comes off. And then there's like that bicarbonate, high minerality component to it as well.
This is my favorite water we had, easily.
That's so interesting because it's the most extreme. But you're pretty extreme, so it kind of makes sense.
I guess, yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah. Now, would you drink this water as like your only water?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, like if this water wanted to like give me free water for life, I would say please.
Shout out to Vici Catalan, sponsor Sandy Kupfer, aka I Love Life. I see some water tattoos coming.
Oh.
Oh.
That would be kind of hard. I'm just like, imagine a water bottle, like now my mind is going.
Well, I'll show you the logos and the whole brand package for
That would be sick.
Liquid Life Wellness Water.
Yeah.
I don't have a tattoo. Sandy keeps trying to convince me to get a tattoo. And I was into the white ink, face tat, first tat.
Don't do it.
Okay, why no do it?
Because you already don't have any tattoos.
Yeah.
You don't need any.
Yep, no tattoos
Yeah.
for your boy. I don't like needles. That's one big part.
Mm.
And I feel like if I get one tattoo, I'm looking like Sandy within a year.
The back piece, the sleeves, the face tat,
For
the
sure.
hands and neck, it's over.
It's over. And there's something that just like, in a way, just as punk rock as you, as not having tattoos as an artist making avant-garde work.
Can you repeat that?
So I think there's like something just as punk rock as to not have any tattoos.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's almost more punk. Yeah. Like kind of. But like, yeah, kind of, and surely it is.
But it's like kind of that duality that we're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's case by case. Like, I think people with no tattoos doing tattoos, yeah, like
That's wild to me.
that's different. But if you're like a no tatted person who stands on the fundament of something extreme and radical, that's kind of like, tattoos aren't a marker of. I mean, I'll speak for myself. They're a lot to me, but they're not who I am. Yeah.
And so like, let's kind of talk about I Love Life, which is your tattoo alias. Is that a good way to describe it, or mantra?
I think I Love Life also started as a mantra when I was younger. And yeah, so the concept is I just draw a lot of drawings and I write a lot of poems like I spoke about earlier. And people get them tattooed. And I do that kind of for a career.
Kind of.
Yeah.
It's a big part, you know? I
Yeah.
think you're super humble around, you know, how much of an impact you've had on this art form.
I think it's cool, right? Like I'm really grateful, and I tattooing has formatively changed my life in a beneficial way. Like it has, like I mentioned earlier, it is like one of those uplifting things in my life. But I also do like to embrace humility and not like be some loser egomaniac. Like yeah, blah 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 blah, da, 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 you know, like I'm not about that. That's not. That's like 18-year-old Sandy. Yeah.
Back when you were seasoned Sandy.
Oh, don't get there.
We can't talk about seasoned
Nah,
Sandy. That's the one off topic.
No, it's cool. I used to make music.
You don't make music anymore at all.
I do. Yeah, I low key do. I make a lot, but I use it in a different way than I used to.
How so?
I don't share it. Yeah, it's just for me.
And it's a cathartic release process, or does it actually aid in your visual language you're creating? What does it kind of mean to you now today?
It's like it's like I'm discovering when I'm creating music because I'm not that good at it. So when I discover through it, I can approach it in a way that's like, oh, I don't have to make something great. Like there's no pressure. And I discover aspects of like myself, or I guess I discover aspects of like how I like to create in general through the process of creating music. But really, music just for me is like a cathartic thing, whether I be listening to it like my friend's music or making it. It's like it's a release, and it's like an experience of like relatability, and it's really a beautiful, magical thing music is.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
It's definitely easy to get ego-driven and egocentric. So keeping it, you know, kind of close to the hip, but it also being part of my practice as well, that is very specific with the Repurposed Religion project,
Yeah.
which you went to the first one here in LA.
Yeah.
And so we have the whole next album done. But, you know, I'm holding it close to the hip, and it's like right place, right time for that.
Yeah, I think I'll start like making music again when someone wants to make a band. But other than that, I'm not gonna.
What are you gonna play in the band? Tambourine
I'm singing. Yeah.
or rapping?
No, I don't rap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Singing.
Yeah.
I see that in your future, my friend.
Thank you.
And maybe you can drink Vichy Catalan on stage.
I would be honored to.
Well, I think that just about does it for Liquid Life episode 2. Thank you so much for joining me, Sandy. I love you, bud.
I love you, and I love Liquid Life.
And I love life.
Yeah.
Wait, future collaboration?
I'm down.
I love
I
life.
actually would be down.
I love Liquid Life.
That would be sick.
Be on the lookout for I Love Liquid Life coming to a Erewhon near you.
Erewhon at least.
I mean, we're going $99.99 at least for the I Love Liquid Life collab.
This bottle right here, you don't know about this bottle.
Oh, speaking of these bottles, do you want one of these test sculptures to take home?
Yeah, definitely.
Which one?
Let me investigate. This one.
All right. And that's a wrap. Thank y'all for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Cool.